Hey all, so this is the last of my 5-part series where I review drugstore foundations that are raved about for oily skin. And we are going to try the most rave about on all social media, which is the Maybelline Matte and Poreless Foundation. So if you want to know more, keep on watching. And if you want a comparison with other drugstore foundations, click on my drugstore foundation for oily skin playlist. So before I put the foundation on, we're just going to look at what my skin looks like now. I have a pimple over here on my left and this part too. I have a healing pimple on my lower lip as well. And then I have hyperpigmentation on the side of my cheeks, and I'm usually oily on my T-zone and dry on some other parts. So it says, Fit Me Matte Poreless Maybelline goes beyond skin tone matching to fit the unique texture issues of normal to oily skin for the ultimate natural skin fit. While some foundations can exaggerate pores in oily skin, only Maybelline Pore Minimizing Foundation contains their genius, blurring micro powders that erase pores and absorbs oil for a naturally matte and poreless looking finish. It is also dermatologist tested and allergy tested, does not clog pores, and oil free. On my right side, I'm not going to put any primer, and then on my left side, I'm going to put my Smashbox Photo Finish Primer. And then the shade that I got is 130 Buff Beige. When it comes to packaging, I don't like packaging that doesn't have a pump like this one. I just feel like it's harder to dispense. Sometimes I can put a lot. There it is. It's a liquid foundation. It's very runny. I use my AIRBRUSH sponge right here. I feel like this has more of a neutral tone than a yellow tone. That's fine, we can work with that. This is just with one layer. It's actually very thin, I find. I think that you need to build this up to have that full coverage. And this is the second layer. Does it blur out my pores? I actually have really big pores on the side of my cheeks. I don't see a lot of blurring, but on the smooth side of my face, it actually looks really good. It looks like my skin. Just go on my right side. It's good with hiding like my redness. I think I'm at that full coverage. I'm gonna close the light here. I think I achieved that full coverage look. So this is my face with the full foundation. On the camera, when I'm looking at the screen, it actually looks like it really blurred my pores. I feel like it blurred my pores more on this side where I didn't apply primer. So I actually like the side without the primer better than the side with the primer. So far, it actually is good in evening out my skin tone. It really covered the redness of my face. I can still see a little of my freckles peeking through, but that's fine. I can still see that dark spots where my healing pimples are, so I'm just gonna cover that with concealer. But it really evened out my skin tone. I just don't see that poreless effect on my face, I feel like. But I like that it's very light on the face and it really evened out my skin tone. So I'm just going to finish my makeup, and then we're going to do a photo test, and we're also going to do a wearability test. So I just finished my makeup, so this is how it looks like. I actually love it more now that it is very set. I put a little powder. When it comes to my pores though, I can still see my pores, but let's see if on photos it would still be super visible. Maybe on the naked eye it's just how it is. So far, when I'm looking on my camera screen, my pores is not that visible and I look like I have very glowy and very healthy skin. So I'm going to use my camera to take a photo with flash. Let's try this on first. It looks very much like skin in photos and actually doesn't have any flashback on flash photography. Now I'm gonna use my phone. Photos, and I've noticed this even before photos, the side with the primer actually highlighted my pores and the right side without the primer didn't highlight my pores. So I guess if you're going to use this, it's better not to use a primer because the blurring effect will, I think, change if you have a primer. But so far, I'm actually liking this foundation. It really covered my imperfections while still looking like skin, and it's very, very light on the face and it looks very matte. So if you have oily skin, I think that this is a good foundation for you. But I'm going to test this out more. I'm going to leave this on my face for 6 hours and I'm going to update you about the wearability, and then I'm going to update you about my pros and cons about this foundation. Hi, so this is my 6th hour and you could see that I have an oily T-zone now, but the rest of my face is really good. I don't see a lot of foundation around my nose, but that's also because I have been touching my nose. But so far, the foundation is still there. I wouldn't say it has a full coverage. I would say that this is lighter than before. And my daughter has been touching my cheeks. That's why I don't have a lot of foundation here. But the rest that is untouched is just oily. So I'm going to use my blotting paper. Oh my god, I'm super oily. So as you can tell, it really didn't control my oil. But the good thing about this foundation is after you remove that oil, you look fresh again. So even though it didn't control my oil with just using a blotting paper, I could see that the foundation is still there. It didn't wear off. So now that we've tested its wearability, I'm going to tell you my final thoughts about this foundation. So I'm giving this foundation a 4 out of 5 stars, and here are my pros and cons. So my first pro is that it's very affordable at $9. It's actually kind of comparable to the Estee Lauder Double Wear Foundation, but that foundation has more of a staying power and that has more of a coverage. But I could say that it's pretty similar to that high-end brand. My second pro is that it feels light and it feels very breathable on. I was actually surprised a while ago when I looked at the mirror. I'm like, oh, I actually have makeup on. I totally forgot because it just feels very light on your face. So I could say that this can be an everyday foundation. So my third pro is that it blurred my pores, although it didn't blur my pores on my left side where I put my primer. If you're going to use this with a primer, just make sure that your primer is specifically for pore minimizing. If you're using just an ordinary primer, it's better to just not use a primer at all, because looking at it now, it doesn't have a difference between the prime side and the non-prime side. I also like that this foundation gave me a light to medium coverage with one layer on, and then it gave me a full coverage on the third layer without it being cakey. Even though it's a matte foundation, it didn't cling to any texture of my skin. Usually my foundation will break up on the side of my nose or would cling to like the driest part of my nose, which is the side of my nose. But it didn't cling on that, it didn't cake on that spot. So that's another pro for this foundation. Now for my cons. As you can tell, it didn't really control the oiliness on my T-zone. So I don't mind it because after blotting it with a blotting sheet, it gave me that fresh look again. Would I recommend this foundation? I would sure recommend this foundation. I would recommend this foundation to actually any skin type, normal, combination, dry, because I think it's just very universal. And I get why a lot of people is actually loving this foundation. So if you are in a hunt for an everyday foundation without breaking the bank, I think that this foundation is a good option for you. It's actually very comparable to the Estee Lauder, as I've said. Bear in mind that you just have to touch up throughout the day. So that's it for my review of this foundation. Thank you so much guys for watching. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll always be updated once a new video is out. Thank you so much guys for watching. I'll see you in my next one.